Listen, I know that AI is getting marginally better at producing images and video, but I don't care. It's still slop. It doesn't matter if there's 5 fingers on a hand now instead of 7 or 8. It's still slop. It isn't made by a human, so it doesn't matter. You know, I can press the generate button over and over and over, and I can make an infinite amount of slop, but it's still slop. You know, 100 McDonald's burgers is a lot of burgers, but it's not one well-made, handcrafted, homemade burger. And quite frankly, it's not even a good comparison because McDonald's burgers can still be good and are still technically handmade. This is just trash. It's all trash. Not Snoopy. Snoopy's fine. But AI is trash. It always will be trash. It doesn't matter how good it gets. It doesn't matter how good it gets. It doesn't matter if it gets completely photorealistic. It doesn't matter if every problem is solved. It's still going to be trash. And quite frankly, it's never going to get that good because we're already at the point of a plateau where technology literally can't get better. And I'm not going to go into detail here because nobody wants to listen to that. But the technology itself has a hard limiter of physics, which is we cannot throw enough electricity, we cannot throw enough compute power where it can get very much better than it already is. There will be some incremental improvements going forward. There will. There already have been massive improvements since the several years ago days of Will Smith eating spaghetti or whatever. It obviously looks better than that now, but it's always slop. And these AI videos that people keep showing, they look impressive for a few seconds, but that's the thing. It's only for a few seconds. If you notice these AI videos, that even the ones that look the most realistic, that look, the least AI generated, can only last for a few seconds because that's all that a statistical probability machine can really produce without breaking down and starting to produce slop again. And that's why even like Coca-Cola, a mini multi-billion-dollar corporation who decided to make their last 2 Christmas videos, commercials, AI, can only have maximum of 5-second shots, and every shot is discontinuous with every shot for it because AI, again, it's a magic 8-ball. It's a statistic probability machine that can only sort of guess at what it should be, at what you're asking. And so the latest AI video from Coca-Cola is produced with 70,000, I think that's what I read, 70,000 prompts, which is an insane amount if you really think about it. Because the average user of something like Sora, maybe you'll prompt it 5 or 10 times to get a 5-second video of, your favorite Harry Potter character, having sex with a cow or something. That's all it could do. It is so hard limited. And anything beyond that requires so many compute resources that it becomes economically impossible. You can take all the money in the world, all the power generation in the world, all the nuclear plants, all the wind farms, all the coal factories, and put them together and still not be able to produce something beyond what already exists. And then you have to really kind of have to backtrack and ask, what's the point? So you can save a few dollars by not paying real artists what they're worth, because that's the dichotomy that exists. You're faced with 2 different futures. One is the most likely future, where this whole thing goes bust. All the private equity, all the public equity, everything that's been invested into AI. And when I say AI, I mean, LLMs that text generation, video generation, photo generation. goes bust, and the whole industry gets, reduced to some niche products that are not anywhere close to the scale of the economy. Or let's imagine best case scenario, at least in the minds of the people who make this stuff, where they get what they want, and they're able to replace every worker with AI, or most workers with AI, especially knowledge workers with AI, which, by the way, isn't possible now and is just never going to be possible. You can argue with me on that, but just imagine this scenario with me. Their best case scenario is that they're able to replace 80% of the population with AI. Great. So then everybody's out of work. Nobody has a job. Everybody's going to be homeless within a couple of months because nobody has enough savings to pay their rent beyond that. So tell me how any of this is good. Tell me how any of this is the future. Tell me how any of this makes any sense at all. We're literally mortgaging our economy on the ability of chatbots to be better at sucking your fucking dick. We're mortgaging our futures, our home values, our ability to live a normal life on how many fingers Will Smith has when he's eating spaghetti. Like, this is so stupid. It's psychotic. But this is where capitalism has led us. It just is. It's where this whole idea of unfettered ability of humans running giant corporations who are only in it for themselves, who only want to get the bonuses that they get, who are just looking to maximize their profit and then bail the fuck out, have led us. It's been going on for, probably close to 50 years at this point, ever since we, broke away from the gold standard in 71, and Reagan became president in 80 and surrounded himself with a bunch of psychopaths who decided to deregulate every single piece of the financial system, which led to the dot-com crash, which led to the housing crash, and the various economic crashes of the 80s, and etc. This is where it's all led. It's maximizing profit in the shortest period of time as possible to leave everything in the dust afterward. And AI is just the cipher of the bigger problem. It's the tool that these economies have latched onto in order to perpetuate the system of short-term bailouts for the richest among us. The people who have made money off of this are the people who already had money, or the people who invested early, which is not most of us. And in the end of the day, between the people who are having to pay the premiums for the data centers that are being built because new facilities and new infrastructure is a premium on your utility bills and not a fee to the data center corporations who are, maximizing the benefit, it all falls on us at the end of the day. Whatever government bailouts come for OpenAI or, whoever, it's going to come from us, the taxpayer. So, I don't know. There's no good things to say. There's no hopeful outcome that I can think of. I don't have any advice for people other than the most basic things, which is, if you know that an AI data center or something like that is coming to your community, protest the fuck out of it. Show up at your community halls, community meetings, your town meetups, and protest it, and do the most that you possibly can to stonewall it. But even that isn't always a possibility, because a lot of times these companies come in incognito and start breaking ground before the public even knows about it. That's happening here in Wisconsin right now, with several very massive data centers planned in different parts of the state. The good news is that these data centers, assuming the AI bubble goes bust at some point, which it kind of has to, it's almost inevitable at this point with how large it's grown, will no longer be funded. Like there's going to become a point where data centers are no longer profitable and they will be either abandoned or sold off, one thing or another. And they're not able to be converted into, like actual data centers where, the internet is trafficked through, because their infrastructure and their hardware requirements and their energy requirements, that kind of thing, are just completely different from AI data centers. At the end of the day, the best we can hope for is the destruction of this bubble, and the hope that it will happen fast and hard, and we can eventually get over it with it and get back to a quote unquote normal economy. But that's what we can hope for. I don't really have anything to say beyond that. I wanted to say something though, because I work in tech and I'm deeply invested in this, and tech has been trying to come from my job. AI has been trying to come from my job for a long time now, at least for, several years. Every day when I go onto LinkedIn, which I don't know why I do that because it's terrible for my mental health, but every day when I go onto LinkedIn, there's always some AI evangelist who's claiming that, AI is going to replace all tech workers someday. But at the end of the day, all of this is going to fall apart, and we're going to have to deal with the consequences somehow. And I would just say at this point, protest where you can, make a difference where you can, be a thorn in the side of the tech oligarchy where you can. And for the love of God, when it comes to the primaries, and I don't mean the main election, I mean the primaries where you can actually choose, who gets to be the front runner of your party. Choose the people who speak out against this stuff. I don't care what party it is, but just choose the people who speak out against this stuff. Choose the people who are aware of the situation on the ground, who are aware of how bad this has all gotten, who are aware of just how much damage this industry has done to us, who are aware of how much the tech sector has taken over the economy, and speak out against it, and who at least promise to do something about it. Even if they fail on those promises, at least reward the people who speak out against it by voting for them, by turning out for them, by volunteering for them. Or be that candidate yourself. Maybe if you're actually one of those psychopaths who are willing to get into politics, do that and be the advocate, and go do something real. But, maybe that's all the power we have right now. But at the end of the day, there are more of us than there are of them. There are more of us than there are of them. And it doesn't have to resort to violence. It doesn't have to be a French Revolution. We can use the power of voting. We can use the democracy that we have in this country to actually make a difference. But it has to be a concerted effort. It has to be a collective effort. It has to be the majority of people getting together and deciding that we're not going to deal with this anymore. We want an economy for the people. And, if technology comes along that's useful to people, that actually improves our lives, we're all for it. But if it's something that just sucks up profits from, retirement funds and ordinary people paying their electric bills, then we're not going to stand for it. And we're going to stand against everything that it's for. And we're going to do what we can. That's all I had to say. Thanks for watching.